Okay, so we will do the podcast. Welcome to the Salesforce Admins Podcast, where we talk about product, community, and careers to help you become an awesome admin. I'm Mike Gerholt.
I'm Jillian Bruce.
And joining us today is Wade Wegner, SVP Developer Platform and Product Lead for Work.com. Oh, this is a cool thing. Let me tell you, we have such a fun conversation. Wade, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's start. Work.com. What is it?
Work.com. Well, I think let me start by actually stepping back a little bit and to say that about a month and a half ago, I started having conversations with some of our internal leaders on the HR side and real estate and around conversations for how Salesforce was going to start thinking about reopening our offices. And, given the global pandemic, this is a topic that is on everyone's mind right now as to how do we start to reopen our businesses, how do we reopen communities, just how do we reopen, right? And I think importantly, do so safely. And so we started thinking about, and I would imagine most people that are listening today can expect and imagine how much the Salesforce platform can actually help facilitate a lot of this, right? We have an amazing platform that can do just about anything you can imagine. And so we started imagining a lot of the ways that we could use the platform to help, reopen Salesforce. And at the same time, a lot of us, some of our executives, I think Mark Benioff in particular, started talking to our customers and realized everyone is going through the exact same thing. And so we started to think, how could we take advantage of really the expertise that we're very fortunate to have at Salesforce? It's, through our own employees that are domain experts in real estate and facilities and HR, but then also, how many people can call up David Agus and start asking questions about what to do in a global pandemic? I mean, not many can, but we have that affordance here, thanks to, our leadership and so forth. And so how do we turn all of this into a set of best practices that can help others also think about reopening? And so out of all of that was born Work.com. And so you can type Work.com into the browser. It'll give you all the marketing around it right there at your fingertips. But I'll say Work.com is a set of tools. It's a set of learning and enablement that'll help all of you think about reopening your businesses, reopening your offices safely.
That's, I love how quickly that all happened, Wade. I mean, and we've all been in this together. And, you described it was just a month ago where you started these conversations.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you're able to kind of put together this incredible kind of product with such a short amount of time? Like, what was that like? How did you get teams to swarm on it?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that story.
Well, we built it on the platform, and I don't know any other way to say it. Like it is 100% built on the platform. So, when we deploy Work.com Command Center, for instance, it is actually a managed package. It is a collection of metadata that describes how all of this will operate, and all of the ways with which the componentry and the solutions and the apps in it function are based on the technologies that exist today in the platform. So whether it's different components communicating via events or taking advantage of a Lightning Web component to provide a rich, actionable set of things that you need to do is kind of a checklist. Like all of this stuff is built in the platform. And so, yes, I think we started actually doing the development work weeks ago, not months, weeks ago, right in the middle, by the way, of a release. So it's not as if we weren't already working on things. And I will say, I don't know that, I've been at Salesforce now 4.5 years. Others have certainly been here longer, but I don't know in my career I've actually seen a company pivot and swarm as fast as Salesforce did here. And honestly, it was because of our CEO, Mark Benioff. He, I think, has been more plugged into what is happening in the world right now and what other executives are thinking about and what's happening just globally right now, that he really was like, we need to help people. We need to swarm. And we did. I mean, we're talking about, this is not just my organization. This has been a virtual collection of engineers, of doc writers, of, QA and performance engineers, across the company coming together to get us to this first deliverable, which we're going to be officially launching on June 1st. It's been pretty remarkable. So I think it's been a collection of building on the platform, and we can break that down a little bit if you'd like, as well as I think just the goodwill and the nature of this company to do good and to help people reopen that enabled us to do this.
I would love for you to touch on that, as I think, just to be the bad guy in the conversation. I could just do that on a spreadsheet, Wade. I don't need your fancy app.
Yeah. So one of the things interesting here, Mike, is that this is employee data that we're starting to talk about, right? So think about one of the first things that's going to have to happen when we reopen is we're going to have to understand everyone's wellness and how they are feeling and what have you been sick and have you been exposed to symptoms and so forth. And so I think all of us would recognize the danger of doing this in spreadsheets. First of all, it's not going to be nearly as organized and so forth, but we're talking about PII. We're talking about personal information. We need to think about this from a compliance perspective. Even the collection of employee information requires consent on behalf of the employee. How do you start to do that? How do you collect consent? And then if you are forced to showcase like that consent in the future and prove it to a regulator or an auditor, how do you do so? Well, I mean, that's the advantage of using a platform that can do all of that. And so I know that was a bit of a facetious, question there and perspective, Mike, but you're right though. Almost everyone is thinking about this now, and almost everyone is looking at doing this through a bunch of spreadsheets, collecting who's going to be the phase 1, phase 2 set of employees, collecting like, are they healthy? What happens if they become sick after they've come back to the office? Like, I think we can do more than do this through spreadsheets, and that's what Work.com tries to do.
Well, I'm always
I
a
love
fan
to
of
set
getting
up
rid
the
of spreadsheets.
question. Yeah, absolutely. We all are.
Boo, spreadsheets. But so you mentioned that, the platform kind of already had this infrastructure in it. Can you tell us a little bit more detailed about some of the specific features that are in basically this package that you've helped lead the team to create that specifically help accomplish these things that people are right now probably doing on spreadsheets?
Yeah, totally. First of all, I realized I did lie. So the first thing I did is you invited me on this podcast, and then I lied to everyone. So apologies. We did actually check one thing into core, and that was we're actually releasing an employee data model. So it'll be a set of standard objects that will be inside a core. And so I think everyone kind of hopefully understands the value of doing that. It gives us that central place to start modeling all of these activities around employee-centric information, right? So you can define relationships, managers, all that kind of stuff. So we did actually check that in and actually backported it so that it'll be available in our summer release. Beyond that, though, what's in it? So think about tracking and understanding employee wellness. That's taking advantage of our surveys products. So we've met with the CDC and a bunch of medical experts and encoded and created survey templates that actually define the questions you should ask and the type of information to collect. Those are all built as templates that'll be provided to you as survey templates that then you can customize should you want to. Maybe you want to ask some additional information. Maybe you don't want to ask some information. You can define what you want and then deploy them to your organization. Same with flows. Like, once you've started to collect this information, there are flow templates that'll be provided that'll help you to think through the decisions that need to be made. So Jillian, you may be well enough to return. Maybe you don't want to return to the office. And how do you start to collect and think about managing that process? So that is, part of it. And then just, the command center itself is a page layout, and it's a page layout that has been then decorated with additional things. So you think about all of the componentry there. We're modeling also public data sets through MuleSoft. When data changes on that page, how does it orchestrate and update other components? How do you think about the actions that occur in one component and another? All of this is just additional metadata built on top of that solution. So really, there is nothing you wouldn't expect from a Salesforce platform application. It's just all there, ready for you to start to customize, extend, and kind of make your own.
And I love that a lot of those tools sound like things that admins are already very, very familiar with. I mean, you're talking about page layouts, you're talking about flows. I mean, surveys, I know plenty of admins have already kind of dabbled in the survey arena. Powerful, very declarative first or, low code tools that I think a lot of our admins would already be familiar with.
And you talked about checking in. So there's also a mobile component of those as well, which is just native to the platform. I mean, I remember back in the day when, as an admin, I used to have to think about mobile consciously. And now it's just part of it, and the app just adjusts.
Absolutely. You're totally right. The surveys that are mobile friendly, the dashboards for executives or operations, facilities managers, just any kind of manager, those are also mobile ready. So you will get a mobile rendering that you can just, open it up on your device and away you go. So absolutely, it's incredible the value that the platform just provides. You don't have to think about targeting all of these different, unique scenarios. So great call up.
Yeah, and
I'm going to add. Go ahead, Jillian.
I think one of the things that is really valuable, the more that I hear you talk about this, is, a lot of organizations, they need to do this, but it's like such a gargantuan effort. They're not going to try and develop their own tools to do this. No. They are going to use whatever they can and go as fast as they can. So the fact that this is something that is already on a platform, which organizations who are using us are familiar with, I think is such a great benefit. I mean, I can imagine a small business, right? You maybe, or you had to, you're not functioning at full speed, full resources. And here you go. You can now kind of use the existing tool that you're using to run your business to really get everybody back to where we need to be. Very, very cool, I think.
One of the things that I don't know that I appreciated until, we started really working on this is how tightly connected all these things need to be. So imagine, understanding employee wellness is like step one, right? Let's say we're all ready to go back. The experiences we're going to have in the office will be different. How are we all going to be prepared for those new experiences, the new normal? This is where that training and enablement is key. And so like built into Work.com, there's these new content kits that we're providing that provide what we believe to be kind of best practices, the encoding of the things that people should expect. We'll give it to you as a template, as a starting point. And you can then customize it and then deploy so that for those who can return, make sure that they're ready to return, right? Because if they're not ready to return, if they don't understand what the new procedures and policies are going to be, they could put themselves or others at risk, right? Like if they don't know how to properly social distance in an elevator. Like this, it's really interesting when you think about it. We're going to have to understand elevator capacity so that we can plan the flow rate of individuals from a lobby to a floor. And then when they're doing that, what should you expect through that? Should you be talking to people on the elevator? The answer is no, you probably shouldn't. And so how do you make sure people understand what to expect before they return? That learning and enablement piece is key. But then we have to also acknowledge the fact that once we return, there will be people that will get sick. And what do you do when someone that you may have been in touch with ends up actually, becoming sick and needs to stay home? What is the responsibility of the employer to notify you? So that ability to understand who has been in touch with what and to let the employee really be at the center of it as well. So that if we all were on the same floor and I'm sick, I should be able to allow my organization, my employer to know that I had been in touch with you and, so on, right? So that then they can notify you. So all of these things are kind of interconnected in terms of how that works, because then you would expect that the next wave of surveys sent to employees is going to be slightly different depending on whether or not you had engaged with someone that is now sick. So you don't want to manage this through spreadsheets. You need a set of best practices and tools that facilitate this. So.
Well, and I'm thinking of, as you're walking through that, I'm thinking of as a smaller business, even a larger business. So I got an employee app, which I probably had already, right? Something to manage my employees. Now I need a survey app. Then you were talking about learning and data management. So on top of me trying to retool my entire business, right, to keep it afloat, I'm thinking like restaurants. All of a sudden now there's, it's drive up, curbside, or delivery. I'm running all that. to have to go through, and I think the biggest part for me is that learning and enablement part, right? Which I saw that in the work.com video. It's just, I think that's such a huge differentiator, because now I put this in place and I have a way to teach people native within it, as opposed to 7 or 8 different apps that I have to log into and try and piecemeal. Okay, Susan is Susie here, but Susan in this app, and try and keep that all together. And it's the stuff that you just take for granted now.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely.
The part for me, I think there's a lot of it. And when you mention the employee data and you mention like the surveys, that's all employee offered, right? It's like the employee opts in, the employee's giving that employer that information, the employee chooses to fill out that survey, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at some of the demos that you might find of work.com online, and in various videos and so forth, you'll see that we at least ask for consent and acknowledgement with every survey and every interaction with that employee, so that we can document that you've given the consent for this information to be captured. You can decide not to, and there's an option in the surveys built in. You can say no, and you won't be asked to come back to the office initially. So, and then it's up to you if you want to keep saying no. I mean, we'll let you and the employer figure that out.
Yeah, when you said even when the offices do open up, I might not want to go back to work. Believe me, I got a 9-month-old. I am ready to get back to the office.
Yeah. Actually, and so here's what's really another interesting thing is, as I've talked with customers, there are customers that have other sorts of criteria that they want to use with respect to determining who should return. One customer was talking about how they have found certain teams or even certain individuals have actually been more productive remotely than they were otherwise. But then some teams aren't as productive. And so, I think you both can imagine this, but you can model this kind of data in our platform, right? Create custom fields, custom objects that encapsulate other pieces of information that might be important to you. And, through a customizable survey, you could start to model that in as part of the decision-making process, right? So, you may not even want to send a survey out to individuals that have been identified as highly productive. You might want to wait for a little while. Let them stay productive remotely. For those that, they're well enough to return and perhaps they've not been as productive, maybe bring them back into the office sooner. So.
Yeah. And it's more than, I think the biggest thing that dawned for me on all of this return to an office, because I don't want to say return to work, is it's not just whether you're well or not, but it's also what's that journey getting there, because you may have somebody at home that is at a high risk, right? And so the journey to the office might be harder for you and back home than just being able to stay at home and work and be productive. So, so I'm hearing this and I'm internalizing it, and maybe my boss has missed everything because they're busy. I'm the Salesforce admin. I want to bring this to them within my organization. Where do I start this conversation?
Well, we alluded to it earlier. I think pretty much every company in the world right now is thinking about this, right? And again, it could be reopening and keeping employees safe. It could be reopening and keeping employees safe in the context of customer interactions. At one level or another, almost everyone is already talking about it. So, I mean, I would encourage to talk to someone in your organization in the HR department. If you have people responsible for offices, facilities, restaurants, maybe they're managers, general managers, and so forth. They're all talking about this. They're all thinking about this. People who are responsible for defining shifts. How are you going to define a shift? I mean, how are you going to do that when you need to be cognizant of, who's available and, are they healthy and so forth? So I think it's probably different everywhere, but I think all of us can probably think and pretty easily identify those individuals that are involved in those sorts of decision making. Again, it could be HR, it could be facilities, it just could be your leadership or general management as well. I think that's where to start. And again, I would be very surprised if they weren't thinking about this already, and probably starting to model out some of this in our friend the spreadsheet. So I think there's a real opportunity to talk to them about a solution that kind of brings this together and provides the platform to reopen on top of.
So you're saying admins can save even more people from spreadsheets?
Yes.
Because these are not the typical business partners and stakeholders that I think admins typically think about. Like, HR facilities, they are definitely someone that is part of building an app, but this is entirely focused on those personas and those kind of leaders. So I think it's an interesting opportunity for admins to maybe, get exposure, kind of create those relationships, strengthen those relationships with different parts of the organization as well.
Yeah. Just, thinking about this too, one of the partners we have engaged with us now is building out inventory management and supply chain management. Think about it, like supply chains are disrupted right now and they will be for a while. There's probably someone in your office that thinks about supply chains. Even at Salesforce, I was learning from a supply chain perspective as well as a contracting perspective. We plan to do 3 to 4 times the cleaning that we did in the past, continual cleaning. That's a lot of additional cleaning supplies, right? And so that's another dimension to this, is based on how many people you bring back at what rate. Like, it's going to impact supply chains. It's going to impact all of these things. So you're right. It's a great observation that it's a different set of personas and individuals that could really benefit from a solution like this.
So one of the things I know that is part of kind of the command center, we talked about the page layouts, is it's also a hot topic that I know a lot of admins are interested in learning more about, is Tableau. Yes. So can you talk to us a little bit about how Tableau is part of Work.com and what that means, what that kind of looks like?
So I'll actually step back a little bit. One of the things that's really neat, and you can actually Google and search for this right now, is you can look at the COVID-19 Tableau data sets. And so we have started to aggregate trusted data from many different sources and allowed you to start to really visualize this data. So that is kind of independently available today. So you can take a look at that. We are looking to take it to kind of the next level, in that we want this data source, all of this data, to be available in the context of our decision making. So if you think about Tableau, like, it's great, the visualizations, but we want to start to model this information as we would think about using it, as objects. And so part of, this won't be here at GA initially. We'll initially at GA have embedded Tableau dashboards, and that's great, right? So you can start to drill in and take a look. But shortly after GA, we will have actual representation of this public data as objects in an org as well. So now you can think about actually just making decisions based on data that is local to employees. So, what is happening in the community? What is happening in the state? You might want to respond to those things differently. And so with that data available as objects, and I don't want to promise if it's an external object or whatnot yet, because we're figuring a lot of this out still.
Forward-looking statements.
Very forward-looking, yes. But having that kind of data available is key, right? So you can start making decisions. So that's what's really exciting about all of that. And that is actually based on work that's being done by the Tableau team, by the MuleSoft team, by Einstein Analytics. And so really, really neat way to think about the power of data and how having that data available is going to be a differentiator for people as they think about reopening and returning.
That is awesome, Wade. That makes me my data nerd is ignited inside of me, and I can't wait.
I looking at the Tableau aspect of it, to me, is just like it so brings everything that you do right to the forefront and helps you understand. Because I think it's one thing to understand, okay, you talked about elevator flow and shift scheduling, but then you have to consider this in the context of the world that you live in. Like, Is your county busier than other, right? Like, the county Jillian lives in is very different than the county I live in Iowa, Yeah.
Yep.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah. And what's going to happen is we're going to see, as communities start to reopen, some are going to open and then they're going to start to close down a little bit, right? And you're going to want to be able to respond to what is happening. And that is the intent of this data, and being able to visualize what is happening helps you to make decisions as well. And so it's going to be critical in terms of, making sure that employees are safe.
Very cool.
That's awesome. So, I think I will.
Go ahead. Jillian and I have only been doing this for like 6 years together. And
You're great.
anytime we have somebody on the podcast that we're just stumbling over to ask questions about, it's because we're both just giddy over the product.
This is true. Well, on that note, I was going to say, Wade, I'm going to thank you on behalf of like all people who are going to be using work.com and the team, because this is so cool. And I think it's going to be so helpful for so many people. And I know I'm excited to see how we use it at Salesforce. And I know that there's a lot of people that are listening that are, going to do what they can to get their leadership to buy in and use this to help them get back to whatever the new normal is.
Yeah. I think this is the thing that I've taken from it is so many people have contributed and worked so hard at this. And I think we all have a vested interest in seeing this work, right? We're all a part of our community. We're all a part of this company. Like we want to see people be able to return safely. And so I have to give a huge shout out to just hundreds of people that are literally they have set aside their day jobs. They have set aside their priorities to be able to help us deliver this. And it's been humbling. It's been inspiring. It's been awesome to see. So.
Yeah, to me, it fits right within the culture of Salesforce, but it just overall, it's just one of those things where it really makes us all considerate and caring of each other. Like thinking through how can we all get back to, our offices, being around our coworkers, people that we know and love the best, and being considerate and safe. Like it's a great thing. Yeah. On that note, thanks for being on the podcast, Wade, taking time out of your day. You said there's a lot of people time out of their day job. I do want to remind everyone, if you want to learn more about all things Salesforce admin, go to admin.salesforce.com to find more resources. And as a reminder, if you love what you hear, I mean, come on, this is a great episode. Be sure to pop on over to iTunes and give us a review. I read them. I share them with the team. We love reading them. You can stay up to date with us on all things admin on Twitter at Salesforce Admins, no I. And you can find me on Twitter. I am at Mike Gerholt. And of course, my host, Jillian K. Bruce. So with that, I'm Mike and she's Jillian. And stay tuned for our next.
And we'll catch you next time.
Catch you next time in.
And we'll catch you next time in the cloud.